Previously on the Trismegistus Academy. Look, there is so much stuff happening here. We're in the bottom of the ninth. I think, if that's the end of a football game, yeah? Baseball, actually, but, why would you be doing the previously on, Dr. Champagne? You're not even in this story. Are you even at the big battle? No, I'm prepping the victory lunch, but I'm also right now the non-canonical version of me, so I know everything I need to know to do this. So can I get on with it or what? Alright, yeah, go ahead. Right, so there's a lot of folks doing stuff in Eloise Ludum's dimension right now. The Maverick class of the Trismegistus Academy is stuck in an arena with Ludum and her big dragon monster, the Little Cornus, and a bunch of her other monsters, the Laughing Littles. 3 of the Archon demons is there too, but they is just watching. At least for now. Ludum's best students is in there as well, but most of them has been revealed to be double agents working with the TAHE kids, or they has just admitted that they hate Ludum as well, like, you know, most folks who knows her. Meanwhile, the Sharp Gang, some other helpers, and the headmistress of TAHE are outside the arena, unable to get in because of a barrier the Archons made, and they is fighting a bunch of Littles themselves too, as well as some of Eloise's students, and probably some overseers who was watching the games, but stuck around when everything started going nuts. There's obviously a lot more stuff going on in the details of these people's lives, but if you want to know more, just go back to the start of the playlist and listen to the whole story. Well, alright, that was pretty succinct. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, and now blah blah blah, the next chapter of the Trismegistus Academy. The scene all around Sterling was chaos. He could barely fly a few feet without a skybound Little or a student or energy blaster beam of varying varieties soaring past him or into him. Thankfully, he and his allies were thoroughly trouncing most of the Littles. They weren't effortless to fight, but going up against the Archon's forces regularly had made the Sharp Gang pretty fierce fighters. A beast that looked like a horrific attempt of a Superman-type Little shot across the sky towards him like lightning. Sterling readied up to dodge aside, but before it even reached him, 3 watery tendrils shot across the sky and bound around the Little. Its flight lost momentum, and it just seemed to fall asleep, staying bound in strands of liquid and tumbling towards the top of the barrier. He looked up to see Evangeline Trismegistus hovering high in the battle, using those same tendrils on dozens of Littles coming her way. He didn't understand the mechanics of the 3 key-shaped auras floating around her as she fought, but that just seemed to make her fighting style even more entrancing. Before that super Little she'd shot down even hit the barrier, a dragon on Sterling's own side, well, barely, shot past him and snatched the Little in its jaws, shredding it to pieces before slamming into the barrier and tearing at it ferociously. It was the first time Sterling had seen Tayran summon the unkillable dragon for a battle, and the thing's vicious and violent nature made Sterling a bit nervous.
Summoner, you were only to call me when I could face an Archon.
Struggling to stay astride the beast's back, Tayran replied, "Well, technically they are here, Snagbasmore. I was simply unaware that we'd be unable to reach the— Oh, whoa! The ferocious wyvern leapt off the barrier and flew up towards the biggest Little it could find. As freaky as that beast was, it was also pretty cool to see in action. Overall, it was an exciting enough fight that Sterling would have been enjoying it, if he weren't so concerned with his young friends trapped in an arena with 3 Archons, Eloise Ludum, and the monstrous Little Cornus. He kept glancing down to see the students facing on the other side of the barrier. While looking around the battlefield, checking on his friends and allies that had come to help, Sterling caught a glimpse of Jake soaring up just below the top of the barrier, like he was getting a view of the whole field. Sterling soared down and landed on top of it, kneeling down. "Jake, hey, bud, can you hear me?" Immediately, Jake whipped his head around, his expression exuding determination and focus. "Hey, Sterling, yeah, how are you guys doing out there?" "Great, the Draco Guard are even tougher than I thought they'd be, nobody's landing blows too hard on Ludum's students, and your upper years were trapped in the same arena as Evangeline, so they're out here too helping now. But I'm more concerned with you guys. Looks like the Archons are just watching, but how are you doing against the Cornus?" Jake darted his eyes around across the field again. "We're okay. Nobody has taken serious injury yet that I couldn't fix, but we've got to get organized. I'm just scoping out where everyone is and trying to figure out a way we can group up without becoming an easy target. That thing's smoke fades away quickly enough, but the threat of breathing it in and being paralyzed is keeping us from getting close. I have some ideas for dealing with it, but I still want to regroup with most people and see if anyone else's ideas are better." He looked back up at Sterling, who was beaming with pride. "Sounds like you've got this covered. We'll get in there to help as soon as we can. Good luck." I love you, kid. Jake smirked. I know. Oh, you did not just Han Solo me. You get back here. Yeah, he's gone. Teenagers. Sterling shot back up into his battle above as Jake soared down into the one below. Jake had noticed something about one of the LAFF students, Khalida Jackal. She was still bound in her own chains, which off-screen had achieved somehow. A little had gone over to her and tried to take some swipes at her, and Jake had thought about going over to help, but then they'd both gotten swallowed up in a swell of the little Conus's smoke. When it cleared, Khalida was completely fine. I mean, her head was off and chomping into the shin of the flailing Little, but the toxic smoke clearly wasn't affecting her the same way it was everyone else. It seemed like now she dealt with the Little, and the Conus was focusing on Emilia and Katas. Jake flew down to Khalida, whose head was doing its best to roll back towards her body. Jake landed down next to her head. Are you gonna try and bite my hand off if I help you out? Why should I trust you to help me? She snarled. Jake stepped past her head to her body and started pulling apart the chains. Well, I'm gonna help whether you trust me or not, because I think we all want the same thing here. You have no idea what I want, she snapped. Her arms suddenly thrust aside, hurling the chains off and smacking Jake in the stomach. Her body got up and ran over to her head, immediately placing it back on. She stood up and snarled at Jake in her full were-jackal form. Jake was ready to fly away if he needed to, but said, You said you work for the Archonic Goddess. Is off-screen right? Is that Tarsa? She stole one of the Archon's powers, and that sounds kinda like a name she would give herself. Khalida continued staring for a moment. Yes, my father is Anubis, but not the one I claimed. We are of dimension U099, and we answer only to the Archonic Goddess, Tarsa. Jake didn't know it, but the Archon Kaijagrex was suddenly entirely focused on his conversation with Khalida. Jake said, Okay, well, I know my multiverse history. This universe we're in used to be Tarsa's. Ludum took it over when Tarsa became the so-called God Overseer of Dimension M308. And even though Tarsa left, I'm pretty positive she isn't cool about what Ludum did to this place after she was gone. Tarsa could hold a grudge for 1 trillion years if she lived that long, so I bet if your allegiance is with her, you're not actually a big fan of your own headmistress, right? Tarsa would probably be pretty pleased with you if you took down Ludum, even if you happened to be helping us in the process. She stared for another moment, then said, What would you have me do? He nodded towards the little Conus. You think you can chain up that thing's mouth? You might be immune, but the rest of us will have a lot easier time if you— Before he finished, she charged towards the little Conus. Jake couldn't even react before another voice spoke behind him. You actually got Khalida to listen to you. Not gonna lie, that's pretty impressive. Jake whipped around and saw Oliver Deimos sauntering up with his hands shoved in his pockets, and his demon smoke formed into a gas mask on his face. Jake smiled. Thanks. You want to help now too? He sighed. Well, living through this would be nice, and Nightmare is kinda curious what Ludum's greatest fear is.
So long as you promise me a shot at her, I suppose I could avoid targeting any of you Trismegistus children. For now.
The demon snarled from inside him. Jake nodded. Awesome! If that mask is protecting you from the Conus's smoke, then anything you can do to help Khalida distract it would be awesome. He shrugged. I guess I'll see what I can do. His legs shifted into demonic form and he ran forward, hands still shoved in his pockets. Khalida was on the monster's neck, trying to choke it with one of her chains while lashing the others towards its mouth. Its tail was swinging up towards her when Oliver leapt astoundingly high and kicked the tail off course. He finally pulled his hands out and they shifted into demon claws, digging them into the Conus's back, clambering up towards its wings to start tearing into them next. As Jake was about to start rounding up his team, he heard Alsaya yelling, What do you mean you don't have it? Where is it? He turned to see her and Waru brawling with a little that looked like a big, mutated rhinoceros man. Chill out, it's here, I just gave it to TAHE. We had this whole other plan we were trying to get Ludum, but it didn't pan out. Jake flew over to them as Waru was goading the rhino little to charge at him while he stood right in front of a wall. It thundered towards him and he simply leapt aside as it smashed horn first into the bricks, getting stuck. Waru called in his strength orb, leapt up, and pounded it in the back of the head, shoving it farther into the wall. Jake landed next to them. Nice move. Waru shrugged. Honestly, felt a bit cliche. I've just played too many Spider-Man games to not give it a go. Alsaya darted over to Jake and grabbed his arm. Jake, I need TAHE. Katas. Her name is actually TAHE Fanimo. Wait, like Mythil and Ortis Yes, everyone can have this wild revelation later, but I need to get to her. She has the Chimera Capital Pocket Dimension thing. If we get that to off-screen... Jake's eyes widened. Then he'll be out of sight in there and can do something extra crazy, whatever it is that he does. Right, okay, let's gather everybody up on off-screen's location. I got some of the LAFF kids to distract the Conus. In Jake's peripheral, he saw a figure fly across the arena. He looked over to see it was Oliver, hurled by the dragon, slamming into a wall. Jake looked back and saw the Conus had one of Kalida's legs in its mouth and was batting her around with its claws as she tried to stay up on one leg. Waru nodded. Well, that distraction might not be as effective as you hoped. I can distract it. Just give me 9 more seconds. Jake, Alsaya, and Waru all looked up to see Naseko, quietly hovering above them with a swell of mist swirling around her. She was moving her hands around like Evangeline often did while casting spells. Jake wanted to ask what she was doing, but she looked focused, so he waited the 9 seconds. In exactly that amount of time, the spores swirling around her flew onto her body, merging with the armor she was already wearing, and almost seeming to transform her actual flesh. By the time the spores had settled, she was completely covered in an insect-like exoskeleton armor. Her mouth and nose were covered as well. Wings even spawned from her back, and she flew down to the 3 onlookers. Waru nodded, impressed. Suddenly the name Insecto actually fits you better. Jake was practically laughing. You've got more new magic spells? That's crazy impressive! Very plainly, she replied, Not really. Miss Trismegistus taught me magic is mostly about feeling as if the spell is already achieved, believing subconsciously you can achieve it, and learning the conjuration words and actions so well that you don't have to think about doing them. They just happen naturally. That part takes a lot of time for most people because it's a lot of repetitive practice. I like repetitive practice when it's something that matters, so that's pretty much all I've been doing in my spare time the last few months. Without waiting for a response, she shot forward, flying right through a swell of the Conus's smoke, unaffected. The Conus whipped its head towards her, spitting a beam of slime. She swirled around it with surprising grace, then shot a beam of her own yellow spores into the Conus's eyes. It thrashed its head, trying to shake them off, dropping Kalida's leg as it did. Naseko caught it and hurled it right towards her. Ludum, still floating near the top of the barrier, shrieked. Do not let that miserable insect get away from you, my precious. She is the one who took Mommy's arm. So take both of hers and her legs and leave her head for me to stomp into the ground when you're through. The Conus swung its head back towards Naseko, or Insecto, thrust forward and tried to bite her out of the air. She simply zipped back, and before the Conus could open its mouth to bite again, 2 of Kalida's chains swung up from below it and wrapped around its maw, holding it shut. She pulled herself up and clamped under its neck. It swung its claw up to swipe at her, but black smoking chains lashed up from the ground and bound around it. Oliver had one claw dug into the ground to hold himself in place, while the other had chains spawned from it to hold the Conus back. But he was clearly struggling. You better keep this thing from ripping me in half, Nightmare, or you're losing a host. Before the demon could respond, Shinobu bounded over to Oliver, grabbed his chains, and yanked down. The little Conus's arm was ripped down to the ground, where she smashed its toes with her kanabo. She grabbed higher on the chain and kept holding down the arm. So this is just how it is? We're all helping the TAHE kids, and we all want Ludum dead? Not me. I just want food, they heard as a slimy green figure leapt into the fray. A sphage landed on the Conus's tail and started chomping into it with his teeth, getting surprisingly deep bites into its flesh. The beast tried to spit more smoke, but its mouth was firmly clamped shut by Kalida. Meanwhile, Jake managed to regroup with Anna, who was helping phase off-screen as a burly ice tiger Little was trying to tear into him. From a ways off to their side, TAHE had handed Emilia her Starblade. Emilia, in full monstrosity form, whipped it so fast that when it struck the tiger, it dug deep into its side and sent it spinning over itself. Before it even finished tumbling, TAHE teleported to her weapon and tore through the beast further, before leaping off, hurling the weapon down again, right into the same spot and cutting the Little in half. She teleported to her weapon once more, just as Alsaya skidded up to her. Jeez, you're hard to get a hold of with all that teleporting around. The pocket dimension, we need to get it to off-screen. TAHE unzipped a pocket in her pants and pulled out the purple disc. Right, he can help because his powers are... what, exactly? Alsaya shrugged. Nobody really understands it, but we get him out of sight and he can do something helpful. Alcaya took the disc and sprinted a short distance back to off-screen, just as all the Mavericks, other than Naseko, who was still distracting the Conus, were gathering up. Kiko, Jake, Anna, Zenith, Waru, Emilia, Darwin off-screen, even Vinda and Sammy were all there ready and waiting, with TAHE running up behind Alcaya. Alcaya got close. She was just about to start slowing down when something ripped her legs out from under her. Her head slammed against the ground and she was yanked up into the air. She'd barely realized it was one of Psychoparadolix's tendrils when she was raised up right before the three watching Archons from their perch.
Just a little interjection, but what's this about a pocket dimension?
Psycho sneered, speaking unnecessarily loudly. Kaijakrex nudged him.
I thought we were done interrupting.
So what, we're just gonna let them teleport someone out of the fight to a pocket dimension? What was the point of making a barrier to keep them in?
Psycho retorted.
You're just mad that they've got a plan that involves that off-screen kid. Quit being a petty little baby, Psycho, and put her down. You're blocking my view of what that adorable little insect girl is up to.
Alcaya was considering just throwing the disc to off-screen, but before she could, her leg fell through the tendril's grip. She flipped through the air to see Anna at its base, holding the tendril to make it intangible. Zenith zipped over and caught Alcaya, swooping her right back down towards off-screen and the others. She heard Psycho mutter something agitated, but he seemed to have listened to his siblings. Nothing else got in her way as she was finally set down right next to off-screen. She handed it to him. Here, this is a portable pocket dimension. Press it to your chest and it'll take you inside where you can be out of sight.
Conveniente, thanks, Speedy Gal. I'll learn people's names later, probably.
He pressed it to his chest, and nothing happened.
Do I need to do something different, or is it warming up or something?
TAHE had rejoined them all and grabbed the disc. She pressed it to her own chest. What? It's not working! Of course it isn't! Ludum's voice boomed as she floated over them. You really think I'd let you use a pocket dimension to get anyone out of here? If you have managed to use that thing before while in my realm, it was only because I wasn't aware it existed. Now that I do, it was nearly effortless to block its use. Alcaya darted her eyes angrily up at Psycho. Now she understood why he'd talked so loudly about it. He just wanted Ludum to know about it so she could stop them from using it. TAHE angrily chucked the disc at the ground. Before any of them could respond, Jake stepped forward and faced the group of students. Alright, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of fighting Ludum's beasts. So how about we finish off that annoying dragon together, then finally start laying into her, huh? They all gave a determined cheer. He went on. Kaleda's got its mouth closed for now, but Slimy Dude, you've got sticky goop powers, right? Can you glue its mouth shut? Can do, Shrimpy, Sammy replied. Thanks, Jake said, ignoring the insult. We need to keep it grounded so the non-flyers can stay in the fight easily. Anyone have any ideas on how to keep it down? Anna raised her hand.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive I have a way.
He smiled. Give it to us, what you got? She turned to Waru.
I'm gonna need your upgrade, but can you try putting it in my gem instead of my chest? I don't know if that'll work, but maybe I'll be able to last longer with the upgrade that way. The crystals are how Jake and I get our powers anyway.
Waru shrugged. It's worth a shot, just say when. She turned and looked at the Conus. It had bounded temporarily off the ground and was flapping around, still trying to shake off the LAFF kids and knock Naseko from the sky. Naseko swooped over the creature's back, then dove down towards the ground. The beast whipped back towards her and followed. Anna hoped that I'd give her the opening she needed.
Okay, now.
Alright, that shot of Evangeline absolutely slaps, so that's going up on the PopCross Studios Teespring store as a poster. Am I allowed to say slaps? Am I too old for that? Whatever, if it makes someone cringe, that just makes it even funnier to me. But yeah, the PopCross Teespring store's back in business, baby, and new posters is going up there again. Plus, there's tons of older ones that you could check out. And you know the usual stick, there's 3 novels available and 3 coloring books available as well on the PopCross bookstores. So check that out, it's all linked in the description. Now back to a bunch of kids beating up a 10,000-year-old lady's pet. Waru hadn't expected that moment to come so fast, but he flicked all 3 of his ability orbs into the crystal stuck in Anna's foot. It started to shine so brightly blue that it nearly blinded all the students around her. Light surged up through her leg to her head and Anna's hair burst up into neon purple spikes. The ground rippled around her like distorting waves. She stepped forward and placed both hands on the ground. Naseko was flying right along the ground, as was the Conus chasing her. It was close enough that its feet started scraping and even pushing along the stony earth. One foot headed down, and Anna held her breath. But instead of phasing her own body, she phased the ground. The Conus's foot stepped right through the earth, and Anna took a breath. The ground re-solidified, trapping the Conus's foot and yanking it backwards. It looked back in rage at its hind leg, setting its other down on the ground, only for Anna to take another breath and target that specific patch of rocks to phase. Its other leg slipped down into the ground, and she trapped that one too. Now it was well and truly stuck in place. The others all cheered excitedly. Anna turned back to Waru.
I think I could go a bit longer with this power-up, but that's basically all I wanted to do. You can take them back.
Waru called the orbs back out. Alright, who else wants an upgrade to help finish this thing off for good? He flicked his strength orb into Emilia, making her even tankier than she already was, gave speed and flight to TAHE, and energy projection to Sammy. Those three took off ahead first, with the others all charging in behind them. Sammy shot so much sticky slime onto the monster's mouth that Khalida could finally pull her chains back. The beast's mouth was not opening again. Sammy moved around to get at its tail, but a Sphage had already chomped right through and bit the mouth on the end of its tail clean off. Some smoke was leaking out of the hole, but Sammy glued that up pretty quick. TAHE ripped across the sky and started slashing through the Conus's wing with her blade, tearing more and more of its flesh away, then carving right at the shoulder of the wing to try and take it off entirely. The beast tried to swipe at her with its other wing, but was too distracted as Zenith soared up in front of it, creating an array of golden blades in front of the beast and sending all of them slashing across its neck. It targeted him instead of TAHE and swung its free wing at him, sending a gust of wind that nearly knocked Jake out of the sky, who was surveying the scene nearby, watching out for any injuries or callouts he could make. Zenith was knocked back too, but Naseko swooped down, snatched his arm, and steadied him. They were both about to soar in at the Conus again, but Jake flew over to Naseko. He quietly asked, "Hey, your spores, do you have any that don't hurt people? Like, can just make big clouds of them or something around one of us?" Meanwhile, Emilia had leapt onto the Conus's back and pounded with enough force to slam its body into the ground. She grabbed the wing that TAHE was swiping at, and with a mighty heave, ripped it the rest of the way off. It stomped its front paws on the ground, laughing and shrieking. Anna and Kiko had been waiting for a moment like that. Kiko was lying on her back with her huge rabbit feet pressed up against Anna's back, aimed at the dragon, just waiting for an opening. Kiko kicked forward and sent Anna soaring towards the Conus. She thumped right into one of its legs, just as it was stomping down, and she held her breath. It was far harder to phase this thing's entire leg than it was to just phase herself or an ally, but she still phased it just enough for that foot to slip into the ground as well. She breathed and leapt back to the ground, leaving another foot stuck in it. Before the beast could even react, Alcaya darted under it, scooped up Anna, and ran them both away. It swiped its goo-glued mouth down helplessly, batting at foes who had already fled. But when its head got low enough, Voorhees charged in. Darwin had summoned his long-clawed Therizinosaurus to help, and astride its back were two of Vinda's fiends. Voorhees swiped a claw at the dragon and slashed across its good eye. The dinosaur kept running to get away from the beast, but the fiends both leapt off it onto the Conus's head and used their tails and claws to keep slashing at its eyes. It desperately tried to shake them off, as Emilia, TAHE, and Sammy regrouped with Waru on the ground a short way from the battle. Sammy said, Okay, that was fun again and all, but it's too much, get it out of me! Waru called the orbs out of Sammy and Emilia, but left the speed orb in TAHE. Hey Godqueller, you think you could go one more round with full power? She was clearly winded from using the speed orb, but she nodded with eager determination. He grinned. Good. Go get your glory. He sent the two other orbs into her chest, and the energy that surged off her nearly knocked him back. Clear the way, everyone! The beast is mine! She shot forward through the air and hurled her Starblade forth. It impaled into the dragon's skull, hitting hard enough to send Vinda's fiends flying off it. The beast swung its only free claw up to knock the blade out, but TAHE teleported to it, spawning dozens of floating white blades as she did, and firing all of them right into the paw, piercing it and pushing it back. She shoved the Starblade farther into the monster's head, then ran along its neck, pulling the blade through its hide behind her. It flailed in fury, swinging what remained of its tail up towards her. She tore out her blade and slashed it with the speed of lightning, chopping another chunk off the tail. She stopped running and planted herself firmly on its back as its head whipped around to face her. I am TAHE Phonemo, and you should consider it your own glory to have the honor of being quelled by me. She leapt off its back with explosive force, flying right up to its head and swinging her star blade. The thundering white energy blade that shot out of her weapon flew through the dragon and burst against the barrier above, almost looking strong enough to damage it. It wasn't quite that powerful, but the strike had torn through its intended mark. TAHE flew past the dragon and landed on the ground, as the severed head of the little Conus followed, slamming down next to her. The beast's body collapsed as all the students cheered. Waru quickly called out his energy orbs. TAHE ran up to him and hugged him. When they'd kissed earlier, it had felt like fiery, in-the-moment passion, but this hug somehow felt more meaningful. She pulled back from it and said, "Thank you, Waru. That felt really good." He smiled more genuinely than usual. "Good, but this ain't over yet." Calling out to everyone, he said, "Any of you seen the movie It? Because I'm thinking we replicate the end of that and have a good old-fashioned clown trouncing." He stared up at Ludum, who was seething, but was coming down closer. "What? You think that is your reward? You slay my beast and now you get to give me a few bruises, My precious little Conus was fierce, but it was nothing but a newborn pup compared to me. I will end you all in sequential order of how dearly I despise you if you even think about attempting to lay a finger on me." Psycho called over from his perch.
I don't know, kids. Me thinks the crazy lady doth protest too much. Anyone else hearing some fear in her voice, or just me?
Jake yelled over to him. "I am, but I'm also thinking it might not just be her who should be afraid, Archon. You're not as observant as I expected." Psycho Perdelict paused, then started looking rapidly around the arena.
No, where is that little...
Then, Psycho spotted a section of the arena floor where Naseko was standing by, creating a swell of spores. Thick enough that nobody could see through it, and big enough for someone to hide inside. Psycho's tendrils burst up out of the ground and flailed through it, forcing Naseko to fly back and stop making the spores.
There's no way I was distracted long enough for him to get away.
The tendrils waved away the spore cloud to reveal there was nobody there. But interestingly, TAHE's Chimera Capital Disc was sitting there on the ground.
Where is he? Where is he?
Jake shrugged. "I don't know. All I do know is he's off-screen. But whether he's gonna be a lot of help or not, I think Waru said it best, everybody." Jake took a deep breath of pride as the Mavericks and LAFF students rallied behind him. They all stared up at Ludum as Jake said, "It's time for a clown trouncing." This episode was actually supposed to end at a later note in the story, but I didn't really want to rush through the clown trouncing, and I'm pretty sure I'll still be able to wrap this up in one more episode. Also, just as a side note, you might have noticed that I've been putting up more shorts recently. Gonna be doing that for about a month, I think, then maybe more if it works out. Just seeing if that can bring some new people to the channel, and direct them towards the full-length videos as well. But anyway, besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is a translation of an African proverb which says, "The desert will teach you more about water than the ocean ever could." The way I interpreted that is essentially to say that going through challenges in life is much better at preparing you to live a good life in spite of other challenges you may face, instead of always just going through mildly easy times. So I hope that's a helpful reminder. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.